Imagine a world on the brink of chaos, where shadowy powers are working behind the scenes to install their claws into every corner of Europe. The latest intelligence from Britain's top spies reveals a dark, looming threat that could reshape the entire global order. It's not just Russia anymore, it's Iran, its terrorist groups, and a dangerous web of alliances designed to destabilize, threaten, and even terrorize the West. This is not paranoia, this is a stark warning, delivered straight from the heart of Britain's intelligence community. Europe is facing a storm that threatens to tear apart stability as we know it. For years, Western nations have played nice, pretending that diplomacy can tame such forces. But the truth is harsher. Britain's latest threat assessment warns of a growing, aggressive intrusion into our security fabric. Russia, long considered a regional threat, is now weaving closer alliances with Iran and militant proxies, plotting to expand its influence far beyond its borders. The UK's intelligence reveals that Russia's military ambitions are not waning. Quite the opposite. Moscow is increasingly emboldened, bolstered by a new axis with Iran, which is supplying weapons and technology, including UAVs and missile systems aimed directly at destabilizing Europe and weakening NATO from within. But it's not just Russia. Iran has been quietly expanding its influence across the Middle East and into Europe, building deep ties with militant groups, criminal networks, and rogue states. Their footprint is not limited to covert operations. Recent reports confirm that Iran's intelligence services have carried out at least 15 assassination and kidnapping attempts against British nationals and UK-based individuals since 2022. This is a nation that openly views the UK and the West as enemies and employs a host of proxy forces to achieve its goals. Its cyber capabilities are also ramping up, with cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure in Europe and the US, aiming to cripple economies and create chaos. And the terrorist threat is not just an abstract risk. The UK's security agencies warn of a dangerous increase in active plots, with organized terrorist groups linked to Iran and Russia plotting attacks across European borders. Intelligence reports speak of a high appetite for risk, with hostile networks operating openly in many parts of Europe, coordinating attacks, cyber assaults, and intimidation campaigns designed to sow discord and fear among populations. The UK has already responded with a major crackdown, but the threat remains entrenched and growing. The UK's national security strategy paints a bleak picture. The global security environment has turned into what some describe as a perfect storm. Russia's military expansion, Iran's regional ambitions, and the cunning use of criminal and terrorist groups to operate with plausible deniability have created a cocktail of threats that could ignite at any moment. The UK's security agencies warn that if tensions escalate further, Europe's fragile stability could shatter in an instant, unleashing chaos across borders. So, what does this mean for NATO? For the United States? The answer is clear. A more aggressive, more determined adversary is waiting, ready to strike. NATO's leaders have been warned. The age of complacency is over. Europe must prepare for a new wave of hybrid warfare, cyber attacks, sabotage, and even terrorist violence. The days when conventional warfare was enough are gone. Now, it's all about asymmetric threats, covert ops, and layered deception, all aimed at weakening our defenses from within. In the background of this rising chaos, the US faces its own challenges. With the Biden administration under pressure to confront this evolving threat, intelligence officials have warned that the risk of escalation is higher than ever. The parallels are striking. Russia, Iran, and militant factions are working in concert, supported by illicit arms trade, cyber espionage, and a shared desire to destabilize Western democracies. The days when America could ignore the dark clouds gathering over Europe are gone. Now, it's a race against time to counter these threats before they spiral out of control. And let's not forget, Russia is probing NATO's vulnerabilities, testing our defenses with cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and covert operations aimed at sowing discord within member states. Meanwhile, Iran's military and intelligence agencies are working tirelessly to develop new weapons, expand their cyber footprint, and deepen their alliances with Russia and North Korea. The threat's implications are apocalyptic, a global power struggle that could plunge us into chaos or worse, full-scale war if we fail to act decisively. This is not just a crisis of security, but of credibility. The enemies are playing the long game, trying to erode trust, manipulate public opinion, and weaken alliances. The West must wake up, or fast, or prepare to face the consequences of a destabilized Europe, a fractured NATO, and a world spiraling into chaos. Imagine the dark shadow creeping over Europe's horizon, cast not by a single actor, but by a collusion of ruthless players determined to dismantle our peace piece by piece. Britain's latest intelligence paints a grim picture. Russia, Iran, and their tangled alliances with terrorist networks are building a cocktail of chaos that threatens to leave Europe fractured and vulnerable. This threat is not distant. It's active, dangerous, and escalating, demanding immediate action. British security officials warn that Russia's ambitions are far from curtailed. Moscow is aggressively deepening ties with Tehran, creating a powerful axis that fuels their shared goal, destabilizing Europe and undermining NATO to shift global power balances in their favor. Iran's involvement is especially alarming. With its sophisticated proxy networks, cyber capabilities, and brazen assassination plots targeting UK soil, it's clear Tehran operates with high risk tolerance and little regard for international norms. Between 2022 and 2024, 2025, British intelligence detected over 15 assassination or kidnapping attempts linked to Iranian agents targeting opponents and dissidents within the UK. These actions demonstrate Tehran's willingness to use extreme measures abroad, viewing the UK as an adversary and a battleground. The British intelligence community describes this as a persistent and unpredictable threat, one that rivals even Russia's operational impact on British security. Iran's expansion extends beyond covert attacks. Its alliances with militant groups and criminal gangs across the Middle East, and even connections with Russian criminal networks, create layers of deniability. This allows Tehran to conduct aggressive campaigns against Western interests with plausible deniability, complicating retaliation efforts. These shadow networks disrupt, intimidate, and breach security with minimal risk of blowback. Cyber threats add another ominous dimension. Iran's cyber units have launched attacks aiming at critical European infrastructure and sensitive government targets, seeking to sow confusion and insecurity. Their asymmetric cyber warfare capabilities challenge traditional defense models, illustrating how non-conventional battlefronts are now just as critical as physical ones. Against this backdrop of escalating threats, Britain has revamped its national security strategy for 2025, emphasizing the urgency of new tools to counter state and proxy aggression. Initiatives such as the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme and enhanced law enforcement powers aim to dismantle networks tied to hostile foreign states. The government has sanctioned criminal organizations linked to Iran and Russia, signaling a no-tolerance approach to covert warfare on British soil. This new threat environment forces Europe and NATO into a severe strategic reckoning. The old model of straightforward military defense no longer suffices. Hybrid warfare, espionage, cyber sabotage, and proxy terrorism are the weapons of choice for adversaries like Russia and Iran determined to erode Western influence and security. NATO's readiness is being tested not just militarily but politically and socially, requiring unprecedented collaboration and vigilance. The United States watches closely. America's intelligence reports align with British assessments, noting a synergistic threat from Russia and Iran. Both nations exploit global instability, operating with ever-increasing sophistication and brazenness. For the US, the imperative is clear: support allies with intelligence, military aid, and diplomatic pressure to counter these threats before they metastasize into open conflict. Europe faces profound consequences if it fails to adapt. The combination of terrorist plots, cyber attacks, and espionage weakens public trust, destabilizes governments, and fractures alliances. The risk is not merely loss of territory, but the erosion of democratic institutions and societal cohesion. This grim reality demands that policymakers and publics stay awake to the growing dangers. The threat from Russia and Iran is not abstract or distant. It is here, undermining Europe's foundations in subtle, insidious ways. The battleground has shifted from tanks and missiles to secret meetings, cyber networks, and assassinations in quiet streets. The UK's intelligence community has sounded a clear, urgent alarm. The coming years will define whether Europe can withstand these attacks or succumb to a new era of instability and insecurity. Europe's security landscape is shifting beneath our feet, and British intelligence reports are sounding the alarm louder than ever before. Iran's intelligence services are increasingly aggressive and unpredictable, planning and executing operations on UK soil with surprising brazenness. Between 2022 and 2025, intelligence uncovered at least 15 assassination and kidnapping attempts targeting British nationals, dissidents, and other opponents of the Iranian regime residing in the UK. These are not random acts of violence. They are calculated, cold-blooded operations serving a clear state agenda. What makes Iran's threat uniquely terrifying is its high appetite for risk. Unlike Russia, whose actions often align with broader strategic objectives, Iran's intelligence apparatus operates with a chaotic autonomy fueled by factionalism. This unpredictability means escalation can occur without clear authorization or control from Tehran's highest leadership, creating an environment ripe for surprise attacks and unintended consequences. Iran uses a sprawling network of proxies, militant groups, and criminal gangs to carry out these operations. Many of these gangs have links to Russia's underworld, creating an opaque web of cooperation and plausible deniability. These networks allow Iran not only to pursue hostile activity abroad, but also to conduct espionage and sabotage with limited exposure and risk of direct retaliation. British security agencies describe these networks as a key enabler of Iran's covert operations and an urgent priority to dismantle. Cyber warfare is another battlefield where Iran is making serious inroads. Offensive cyber capabilities have become a prime tool for Tehran to challenge Western interests discreetly but effectively. Attacks on critical infrastructure, government agencies, and even the defense industry have been traced back to Iranian cyber units. The damage is both real and symbolic. Electricity grids destabilized, networks infiltrated, and personal data stolen to fuel further espionage or manipulations. The UK government is not standing still. In response to this rising tide of threats, Britain has implemented a robust national security strategy aimed at thwarting hostile state activity. This includes the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme introduced in July July 2025, designed to shine a light on foreign agents operating in Britain, with Iran placed on the most stringent tier. The government has adopted new legislation granting it broader powers equivalent to counter-terrorism measures specifically for state threats, including proscription-like tools to inhibit hostile network activities. Britain's efforts include coordinated sanctions targeting criminal groups like the Foxtrot network, linked to Iranian intelligence operations. Such moves strip away layers of protection enjoyed by these entities. Alongside these legal and enforcement mechanisms, a new cross-Whitehall joint unit has been established to unify efforts against state threats. Frontline police officers nationwide are undergoing specialized training to identify and mitigate these threats at the street level, while top intelligence agencies continue disrupting plots and protecting potential targets. The challenge for European and NATO allies is adapting to a threat environment that blends traditional espionage and warfare with unconventional tactics, cyber sabotage, proxy terrorism, and hybrid warfare. Russia and Iran exploit democratic societies' openness and freedoms, seeding discord and undermining public faith in institutions. The UK's intelligence warns that future conflicts will require more than tanks and jets. They will demand new strategies to counter attacks that are invisible, rapid, and often deniable. The United States follows a similar trajectory, with intelligence assessments reinforcing Britain's conclusions about this growing triad threat: Russia, Iran, and connected militant groups. These adversaries operate in close concert, sharing resources, intelligence, and operational theaters. Their efforts to destabilize Europe mirror their global ambitions to reshape power balances in their favor. If these threats continue unchecked, Europe faces cascading consequences. Societies could be further divided by disinformation and political interference. Governments weakened by espionage and terrorism might lose public trust, laying fertile ground for extremist ideologies and political chaos. Economies could suffer from constant cyber attacks targeting crucial infrastructure, and NATO's unity, long the spine of European security, risks fracture under internal pressures and external manipulation. The stakes could not be higher. Europe's democratic values and security architecture are under assault from a coalition of hostile state actors and proxies. The UK's intelligence community has unveiled this stark reality not as a fear-mongering exercise, but as a call to mobilize resources, sharpen defenses, and build resilience before the next attack escalates beyond repair. In this increasingly dangerous world, standing still is not an option. Europe must strengthen alliances, invest in intelligence and cyber defenses, and prepare for a multi-domain battle that spans physical, digital, and ideological fronts. The rise of these threats is a warning shot echoing through every capital, a challenge to protect not just borders, but the fabric of our societies. Europe is staring down the barrel of a multi-front security crisis like never before, with British intelligence laying bare the raw scale and scope of the threat. The cold, hard truth is this: Russia, Iran, and an intricate network of terrorist groups have woven a deadly web threatening to dismantle the continent's safety and stability. The reality is undeniable. The battle lines have shifted from traditional warfare to the shadows of espionage, cyber warfare, assassination plots, and proxy terrorism. What's unfolding could redefine global security for decades. British intelligence paints Iran as a persistent and unpredictable threat. This isn't a mere shadowy rumor. It's a clear, insistent warning from the top echelons of the UK intelligence community. Iran's intelligence services don't just operate boldly, they do so with astonishing autonomy, which means hostile acts can be initiated or escalated without clear control from Tehran's highest levels. The result, a dangerous unpredictability that keeps security agencies on constant high alert. Between 2022 and 2025 alone, Iranian operatives or their proxies have launched at least 15 assassination or kidnapping attempts against individuals on British soil, targeting dissidents, critics, and even entire communities seen as enemies of the regime. It's not an exaggeration to say that the UK has become a battleground for covert warfare waged by Tehran's intelligence agencies, which view the British homeland as a legitimate playing field. Iran has cultivated alliances with militant groups, criminal networks, and even Russian underworld figures to further its covert operations. These criminal proxies serve a dual purpose. They conduct attacks on behalf of Tehran while providing plausible deniability, allowing Iran to distance itself from direct involvement. This chaotic alliance between state-sponsored terrorism and organized crime creates a complex challenge, making it harder for law enforcement and intelligence agencies to dismantle these networks. Cyber attacks represent another dangerous front. Iranian-backed cyber units have ramped up assaults on European critical infrastructure, government agencies, and strategic industries, seeking to disrupt, steal, and sow chaos. The use of asymmetric warfare tactics means Tehran can punch above its weight, causing significant damage without firing a single shot. UK authorities have upgraded cyber defenses in response, but the evolving threat demands constant vigilance and innovation. Britain's response has been swift and strategic. The 2025 National Security Strategy reflects a significant shift in tackling hostile state activity, emphasizing the need for new legislative and enforcement powers tailored to countering the covert threats posed by countries like Iran and Russia. This includes the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, which forces foreign agents and representatives from hostile states to declare their activities, enabling better tracking and interception. The UK's law enforcement agencies have also cracked down on criminal groups linked to Iranian intelligence, such as the notorious Foxtrot network. By targeting these proxies, Britain aims to dismantle Tehran's covert operational channels. These measures are paired with enhanced cooperation at the European and international level, recognizing that this is a threat that transcends national borders. This evolving threat landscape forces NATO and Europe at large to rethink traditional defense paradigms. State-on-state warfare is no longer the sole concern. Instead, hybrid warfare involving cyber operations, disinformation campaigns, proxy violence, and covert sabotage dominates. The British intelligence community's warnings echo across NATO capitals. A failure to adapt risks, leaving Europe exposed to unprecedented and multifaceted attacks. The United States, a steadfast ally, corroborates these concerns. As Russian and Iranian actors deepen cooperation in military, technological, and intelligence domains, Western democracies face an emboldened adversary operating with near impunity. America's intelligence and defense communities stress that the time to augment support for Europe is now, not later. The potential fallout from unchecked aggression is catastrophic. Heightened terrorism, cyber disruptions, and espionage not only threaten lives and critical infrastructure, but also undermine public faith in governments, stoke social divisions, and catalyze political instability. NATO's cohesion could fray under internal pressures, making an already volatile situation even more precarious. Ultimately, the stark message from British intelligence is clear. Europe is at a crossroads. The decade ahead demands unwavering vigilance, deepened international cooperation, and robust investments in intelligence, counterterrorism, cyber defense, and rapid response capabilities. The future of European security and the global order hangs in the balance. This isn't a distant nightmare. It's today's urgent reality. The question now is whether Europe and its allies have the will, unity, and resources to meet this complex, growing threat head-on, or whether complacency and division will lead to a fractured, insecure future.